I'll tell my little story. Okay. My name is Stephen Abramowitz. I was born in Johannesburg on the 28th of July 1960, so I've just turned 55, and was adopted at birth by the legendary June and the very gentle Les Abramowitz, who came down from Rhodesia to get me. When I was about 8 days old, I flew back home to Waterfalls in Salisbury to Hellingen across the mighty Macaboozy on an Air Rhodesia Viscount, and lived in Rhodesia for the next 17 years, very happily, as we all did. We shouldn't have all done, but we all did. My mother, June, was from a very old South African-based family from the Eastern Transvaal. Her father, my grandfather, Naimi Metz, was the mayor of Graskop at one stage. My father was born in Lithuania, Kovna, Lithuania. And whenever I behaved badly, he told me I was a Polak. But, and they left there. His father, Israel, got the job as the chazan at the Doornfontein Shul. So they went down the Baltic, Paraguay, Uruguay, I don't know, around the Cape, up to the Transvaal by oxcart, whatever they did in the 20s. His father was the chazan at the Doornfontein Shul, and his mother, these noises you can hear in the background are my dog eating a bone. It's not my arthritis. His mother, Rachel, opened the first kosher delicatessen in South Africa, the Versailles in Doornfontein. And it was legendary. And she never gave me a recipe, the bitch. And so I grew up in Waterfalls, a very small farming community. We were on one corner of Sheridan Avenue, and Dr. Bernie Singer and his family, his wife Sally and their 3 kids, were on the other corner of Sheridan Avenue, including Raphael, who now lives in Israel, who was also born on the 28th of July. So there you go. And then when I was about 7, my mother had enough of living in the Gamadulus, and we moved to Milton Park, Knights Bruce Road, sandwiched from a place, Waterfalls, where there were more horses than Jews. There were now more Jews than anything. We had the Aladefs on one side, then the Salomons, behind us the Wiesenbachers, then us, the Donners next to the Wiesen. We were in the ghetto, man. And I was at Sharon School. I started off at the junior school, at the nursery school with Auntie Doreen Sachs. And I spent my fair share of time behind the piano, I can tell you. I don't think I was that wild then, but Auntie Doreen, very happy days. Then started at Sharon School with all the other little Yiddelach. What year would that have been? 65, I guess, 66, who knows, with Mrs. Munro. And had a few happy years at Sharon School. And then I bumped into Olive Warburton in Standard 4. And she bumped into me. And it was ugly. It was war. I was raised to never take a backward step. And I don't think she had a reverse gear either. And it sort of came to an impasse. And so my parents decided that I would then go to Blakiston. They told me one Sunday night, I'll never forget this, downstairs eating a chicken and a very bad baguette from the Sunflower Chicken place there on First Street, that I wasn't going back to Sharon the next day. I thought, this is great. I finished school. But no, apparently I was off to Blakiston. So I went to Blakiston the next day. And for the very first time in my life at Blakiston School that day, I got called a bloody Jew by a boy called Paul Hanratty, who is now the head of Old Mutual South Africa. And I knocked him out. So the first day I was in Cuck. They were phoning the house, and June was going, what have you done? And blah, blah, blah. And, but I made some good friends at Blakiston. From there, of course, Blakiston ended. I still hold a swimming record at Blakiston, but I think it's only because now the swimming pool is completely rooted, so they don't have the gala anymore. But then I went to PES. That was interesting. A lot of Jewish boys went to PES, and a lot of them will tell you it was a really good school, and they're lying to you through their teeth. It was an awful place. No more awful than any other Rhodesian high school, I suppose, but it seemed to specialize in anti-Semitism, and maybe I not maybe, I'm sure I brought out the anti-Semitism a bit. I mean, I'm sure it was a give and take situation. The interesting thing was in about 1974 or 5, I don't know, my parents decided Rhodesia perhaps isn't the land of milk and honey everyone thinks it is, so they went on their tour of Europe and America, and wherever else they, whoever would take them, and put me, in their infinite wisdom, into the boarding hostels. So this was quite interesting. I was 14 or 14 and a half, 15 at the oldest. One Jew, 1,750 boarders. And it was at the height of the war, so all the Rhodesian boys were schmeitzing before they did the army. It was an interesting time. I need a drink as I recollect it. So I learned to be quite handy with my fists, I suppose. I got the shit kicked out of me on a daily basis. But what I did is I kind of ran a scheme there where I'd phone my old man, said, if you need anything from the pharmacy, just call them. So I'd ask all the older boys, do they need anything? And I was selling Durex and brewer's yeast and after tabak and pub aftershave and deodorants. I was making a fortune. Aaron would ride on the little Parktown Pharmacy scooter the whole way across the Macaboozy, the whole way to Prince Edward School. Beep, beep, drop off my parcel. I'd sell it to them, kept all the money. It never occurred to me that I might have to balance the books when Les and June got back from overseas. That was quite an interesting discussion we had there. And yeah, so I went to Prince Edward. I did O-levels. And there's the dog, sorry. Did O-levels and passed. Well, I know how I passed. I cheated in O-levels. Shush. Did M-levels and plugged abysmally. But because by the time I did M-levels, most of my Jewish mates had left, and I went completely off the rails in that last year. But, and was, I suppose from about 13 onwards, I was really involved in Habonim. I went to Habonim Machane when I was 13. I was the only Rhodesian of my age. So, Bonim, Hermanus, thereby Hermanus. So, of course, all the older Rhodesian chicks looked up. It was great. Chicks like Leonie still walking up every day and asking you how you were. I thought, man, it doesn't get much better than this. And then Judy, and then Tessa Gelfand was lovely. Amanda Hammer, all of them. It was fabulous. I loved Habonim. But I only ever went to Habonim for the social jaw. And as you got older into Habonim, they used to give you the lectures and the idea was in your suitcase packed. And I really had a good time. I used to every year I had to go to big camp. There was big camp and seminar and small camp and this. I can't remember what camps there were, but they were great fun. We had an amazingly good time. And a lot of us went for quite a long time. And then Rhodesia, for me, at Habonim, Robert Turtlove, Cole, Jarvis, Stephen DeVace, who of course we called Gadget. We all had nicknames. You weren't a Rhodesian my age if you didn't have a nickname. We all had nicknames. Dirk Goldwasser, Dickie Levy. Oh man, they were just Neil Rosenfield. Paul Merbach, who's now living, last time I heard he's running Israel, Merbach. All these people were at Habonim. Older and younger, and the thing I liked about it, we used to run wild. I mean, I don't know I certainly don't know what my parents thought they were doing, sending me away for 3 weeks. When, the people who were supervising me, their idea of supervision was, please don't catch us smoking weed. It was, being on that beach at Hermanus, completely unsupervised, some of the greatest days of my life. It was this amazing and the train trip through Africa. And the knocking on the windows of the locals selling tiny shots with and totos and the walking stick. Oh man, I used to love it, I used to love it. And biffing the bolsters out the train window when you cross the Orange River. Growing up in Africa, for me, it was a gift. It was a gift. And I don't think, certainly, I was lucky. My best friend, who's still my best friend to this day, wasn't Jewish. Still isn't Jewish. And because of him, I got to go into the bush a lot. And I got to do, his family owned huge bits of land on the escarpment. in places like that. And I used to go with him often into the bush. And the one thing now, I mean, all these people go, oh, I love the bush and this and that. When we were kids, I don't think we made enough of that bit of it. And I was always first, and it got me into quite a bit of trouble, I suppose. But I was first and foremost a Rhodesian before I was anything else. I've never been that religious ever. I mean, I had a bar mitzvah and all that stuff, and my parents said to me, you'll have a bar mitzvah, and then you can decide. And I had a bar mitzvah, and then I decided, yeah, I'll take all the holidays, which is, the convenient thing. But I really got the most of going into the bush and hanging out, and I loved all that stuff. And then all that changed suddenly. One day I went to school, because when the boys left, they couldn't tell anyone. So you'd go, I went to school one day and Dan Jarvitz wasn't there. And I went home and said I was in bits. And my mother was kind of like, well, just get on with it. Because they were also in a shit situation. Their lives that they'd made for, 25, 30 years were falling apart. I remember being with my father once in New York. I was young. I was 13 or 14. And to have a bit of fun, we took some Rhodesian currency and we went into an exchange place. And the two of us killed ourselves laughing at what they'd offered him. But I don't know how much he was laughing inside. This is the money he'd spent his life earning. So those last couple of years, after O-levels were great. I passed. My parents didn't know how I passed. I'm sure June suspected. But, you got your license at 16. Somehow we always managed to have petrol coupons. Edgar Cole would phone me and go, I've got a couple, do you need them? My father, in Santa, he bought me this hot rod thing. I did wheelies all around Salisbury. It was ridiculous. And then Uncle Edgar would phone, you need some petrol coupons, or David would phone, Ed's got to go get those. So we always had a way where we had, someone had coupons, someone else had money, and we had a good time. And the food, man, dude, I lived a house away from Claret Allerdale for a year and a half. I mean, there's an education in brilliant food. Joyce Cole was handy, and my mother was cuck. She was cuck. It's why I'm so hell-bent on cooking these days, because of the self-defense mechanism. Hesse Grossberg we kind of ran the ridge, because there was, me in the middle, the Grossberg boys at one end, and I got raised by, there was my mother, Rhoda Immerman, and Hesse Grossberg. If I farted, my mother found out. One of them would report me, and I remember when I was 14, I got into this, I used to steal my mother's car and go driving through town. And one day I pranked it, and I had to go home and tell them. Oh, man, there was some trouble. And yeah, look, we were wild, but we were wild, I'd like to think, in a harmless kind of way. And then, not yet. And we never were. Look, it's Africa, You smoked a bit of weed, you spoke a bit of shit. You didn't really want to go to the army, which I refused to. I said when all the boys started leaving, one day we woke up and every sort of boy my age had gone to Sterbokker. We'd never heard of the place. Suddenly everyone was at Sterbokker. Jarvitz suddenly had become a Zionist. I was like, what? Come on, man. But my mother said, do you want to go? And I said, because my best mate was going to go to the army, I said, if I'm going to leave here, I can't let him fight for you.